Arsenal have spent nearly €800 million during the Mikel Arteta era, but have won just a single major trophy in those 5 years. And with the Premier League title now a distant reality, the Champions League could be the only consolation for the Gunners. But is there any sense for Arsenal fans to dream? And where exactly do the problems lie? All in all, Arsenal have had a tough time establishing themselves as a force to be reckoned with within English and European football, ever since they won their last Premier League title in 2004, when they pulled off the Invincibles. It's an opinion you may not have heard before, but it's a fact. Arsenal have been on a decline since that golden day at Highbury, when Patrick Vieira held the Premier League high above his head after the Gunners had an impressive 26 wins and 12 draws throughout the campaign. Ever since then, Arsenal's standards have been steadily declining for at least the next 17 years, until Mikel Arteta's second season at the helm brought a marked improvement. Yes, you might say, but Arsenal have played in a Champions League final and also finished as second in the Premier League twice in that period. Yes, that's true, but in all those cases they finished second, not first, right? And Thierry Henry himself explained it brilliantly in his guest appearance on Sky Sports in 2015 when asked why Arsenal's Invincibles didn't become a dynasty.
Why did that team that was invincible, why did it not kick on? Why did it not become a dynasty?
I think money wasn't available. In 2 years we nearly lost the Invincible team. That was the thing. No money. The money went into the stadium. And we were losing players every single year after that, and it became very difficult for us.
So it seems that money has really been the main reason for Arsenal's decline all along, and not just because Arsenal lacked it at the time, because of the move from Highbury to the Emirates, but also because Chelsea's financial injections received after Roman Abramovich took over were too much to handle. The Russian arrived in 2003, and over the next 3 years he made them champions twice, in back-to-back seasons in 2005 and 2006. However, Arsenal still couldn't win the Champions League. Yes, they qualified for the final in 2006, and although they opened the scoring against Barcelona, the Catalans came back from 1-0 down to win 2-1, dealing another blow to Arsenal's reputation. Yes, in retrospect, qualifying for your first ever Champions League final must have been a source of pride for the Gunners, especially if you thought, okay, we lost this time, but we'll win it in a few years. However, the reality hits even harder 19 years later, when Arsenal have only qualified for one semi-final since 2006, let alone a direct clash for the trophy. And back to the main point, it really does seem that the biggest obstacle in this period has been finances, especially after the huge investment made in the new stadium. In an interesting statistic provided by Sky Sports, here you can see the net spending of Arsenal compared to the other big 6 teams in the Premier League between 2004 and 2013, as well as the players that Arsenal brought in those 5 years after the Invincible season. But here's the burning question though, if money was the main problem then, what's stopping the current Arsenal side from succeeding, having spent €782 million on new players during the Mikel Arteta era? When we first saw these figures, we were in shock, to say the least. If we divide that amount by 5, for the 5 full years that Arteta spent in North London, it appears that the Gunners have spent an average of €156 million per year. Even with that respectable figure in mind, Arsenal is still 4th in the league behind Chelsea, Man United and Tottenham, thanks to the sales of the likes of Joe Willock, Folarin Balogun, Eddie Nketiah and Emil Smith-Rowe, which have brought in a total of €120 million. But still, you have some heavy investments like €115 million for Declan Rice, 75 for Havertz, 60 for Ben White and 52 for Gabriel Jesus, transfers who have cost Arsenal a total of €250 million in the span of 2 years. But you know what the interesting part is? Just a minute ago we were comparing Arsenal to Man United, Chelsea and Spurs, who are nowhere near Arsenal's level in the last 3 years. So what happens when we compare the Gunners to their biggest rivals in recent seasons, Man City and Liverpool? Yes, the citizens are notorious for spending in the transfer market, but they're also extremely successful when it comes to selling players. This puts them well below Arsenal with a net spend of €320 million over the last 5 years, or around €140 million less than the Gunners. The Merseyside outfit are even lower on the list, 8th with €250 million spent. But we haven't even told you the most striking thing. As you know, clubs make money from TV rights. sponsorships, merchandise, and ticket sales. However, the most successful clubs out there also make a ton of money from winning trophies. On the one hand, you have Man City, who have won 4 Premier League trophies, the Champions League and the treble in 2023, a reason for a big injection into the bank balance sheets. Liverpool, on the other hand, didn't win as much as Man City in that period, but also won the Champions League, also won the Premier League, and on top of that, the FA Cup and 2 League Cups. Again, far more than what Arteta achieved in the same period. So as you can see, the conclusion of these facts and figures is that money was a big problem in the 15 years between the Invincibles and the arrival of Arteta, but since he took over and money finally started to heavily fund the team, Arsenal are still failing to capitalise on it. And the funny thing is that no one is even considering cutting the investment. According to various reports, the Gunners are set for one of the biggest transfer windows in the club's entire history this season, and are concentrating on strengthening 3 key areas. First and foremost, and undoubtedly the most shaky position in the team, is that of the striker. Aside from Gabriel Jesus, who isn't even a natural number 9 and is more of a mobile striker who tends to drift out wide, there isn't a single target man who can operate in that area. Kai Havertz has been used in that role, but it's obvious to all of us that the German is not that sort of player who can guarantee you 30 plus goals in a season. Interestingly, Arsenal have lacked this type of striker for more or less the entirety of Arteta's time at the club. The last world-class centre forward to boast such skills was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, but we all remember his form after Arteta's arrival and the toxic relationship between the two. Well, Arsenal are desperate to sign a striker, with Alexander Isak and, more possibly, Leipzig's Benjamin Sesko being the names linked with the Gunners. The latest rumours suggest that the Slovenian has a £55 million release clause in his Leipzig contract and is also keen to move to a bigger club, most likely in the Premier League. The other position in need of improvement is the left wing. Gabriel Martinelli is the starting man on that left flank, but his injuries and poor form have cast doubt on his continuity at the Emirates. In 35 games this season, Martinelli has scored 7 goals and provided 4 assists in all competitions. To put that into perspective, in his first ever season for the Gunners, 2019-20, when the Brazilian was just 19 years old, Martinelli scored 10 goals and provided 3 assists, a huge difference from now when he is currently entering his prime, or at least on paper. The thing, however, is that young Martinelli was actually performing better than the version of the Brazilian in the last 2 seasons. So, the man who has been tipped to fill the left wing spot is Athletic Club's Nico Williams. According to various sources, the Spain international, who was one of his country's talismans at the Euros, has opted to join Arsenal rather than Barcelona, despite coming within 1 signature of securing a move to the Camp Nou last summer. With that in mind, Nico looks set to leave his boyhood club this summer, with reports suggesting that Athletic Club have included a €55 million release clause in his contract. And the latest name to be added to Arsenal's squad for next season is Martin Zubimendi. Zubimendi, who plays for Williams' arch rivals Real Sociedad, is regarded as one of the most sought-after young midfielders in the world. In January 2025, it was reported that Zubimendi and Arsenal had agreed a move for him, especially after it was confirmed that Gunners won't be renewing Thomas Partey's contract, and the Ghanaian will leave as a free agent this summer. Zubimendi, like Nico Williams, is reported to have a release clause in the region of €60 million. So, you get the point. With all these preparations for a huge summer transfer window that would break all records in the entire history of the club, Arsenal are just putting themselves in an awkward position once again. They seem to be announcing to the world that they're going to invest heavily, which puts even more pressure on them to win silverware. And that's probably the big problem with their philosophy. They set the bar too high, and then they fail like a serial bottler on more or less all fronts. Then they make statements like, next season will be our season, and the whole cycle repeats itself year after year. And just like Patrice Evra said a few years ago,
watching Arsenal is watching Netflix, you always wait for the next season.
Of course, we can't overlook the fact that Arsenal have improved massively in recent years. The difference between the pre- and post-Arteta eras is huge. He really has turned them into one of the most consistent sides in Europe, but they are nowhere near the level of Man City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool and Bayern Munich in terms of mentality and capacity at crucial moments. So what do you expect from the Gunners between now and the end of 2024-25? Could they reach the final of the Champions League? Or has the injuries and the lack of competitiveness harmed Arsenal a lot? Share your thoughts below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel or check our latest uploads in which we talked about our power rankings for the 2025 Ballon d'Or. I'll see you there.